coming.
Took a minute to process that. Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Actual Play Broadcast. Today, we're not playing a game. Today, we're not reviewing a game per se. Today, we're looking at, what's like, anthology? RPG anthology?
Tabletop archaeology.
Tabletop archaeology.
Because I imagine this is going to be a new series we're doing. I imagine the majority of things that are going to be on here are probably going to be older things. Because there's not a lot of cause to talk about some of the newer stuff outside of some pretty niche things. But I wanted to do a series where we could talk about things that we're not necessarily going to play on the podcast. Like, they might be neat, but maybe they don't suit well for a podcast type of play environment. Or maybe it's something where it's like, we look at the rules and we're like, no, we're not going to be playing that. It's neat though. So I wanted a chance for us to talk about all the variety of things that are out there that can be essentially inspiration or just bring general awareness to other games. Because who knows? Just because a game is old doesn't mean it needs to be forgotten about necessarily.
Yeah.
And this one we're going to be talking about, oh boy. I've been doing a little bit of research while skimming through parts of the book. And I have so many feelings.
I have nothing but nostalgia.
I feel like I can understand why.
Am I about to feel attacked?
No, not at all. I say that in a good way, a well-intentioned way. It's just one of those things where I feel like with a game like this, it's either nostalgia or burning rage that you feel. And I can understand both in equal measures. Because there's a part of me that is deeply fascinated and amused by this game. But there's a part of me that is like, dear God, no. Why would you do this to yourself?
So let's go ahead and get started talking about this game.
Yeah. As a note, obviously, Brandon is the one that knows this game. I don't really know this game. When I pitched the series idea, I had a game in mind, but I needed more time to digest it because it's not a game I've played that I have in mind to do. So I have to do more research and such. But in the meantime, Brandon's like, I have one that I want to talk about because he has played this game pretty extensively from what I understand.
I mean, I played through a 15-session campaign.
I mean, that's probably okay. Not necessarily extensive, considering the heft, we'll say, of the system, but that's still a decent bite into what the game is, I feel.
Yeah. And to be fair, there was a list of modified rules that I did double check through, and I'm like, I think only some of these will come up in our general talk about it.
Okay.
But otherwise, I wanted to look at this as its own system without any homebrew nonsense added to it. So we may talk about that if those topics come up.
Yeah, we'll see where the road takes us. I do have one question, though.
Sure.
And Robin Crosby, who hurt you? Did you?
Society? I don't
Did
know.
you see D&D and felt personally attacked? For context, dear listener, the main designer for this system is N. Robin Crosby. And I looked at when this game came out. It came out, the original first edition came out 1986, which was about 12 years after OD&D came out. And I just can't help but imagine, you know, a group of guys trying to play D&D and just burying themselves alive with house rules to make the game more realistic until eventually they decided to start mass printing their binders of rules and selling it as a product. That's kind of my takeaway from how I think this game came to be. I could be wrong. I haven't done that deeper research, but that's the deep spiritual feeling I have looking at this book.
So they're always at Gen Con. I could ask that question. I want to
Please.
listen to this podcast and tell me who hurt you.
And I mean
Um,
that in the kindest way possible. I don't mean literally who hurt you, but I do want to know what was the motivation behind making this. I
to
feel
be
like realism is part of it.
yeah,
I feel like immersion is the other part because
to
I
be
understand both of those.
to be fair, D&D started as a group of people that were like, we want to we're a bunch of war gamers. We want to tell a story.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
So
Yeah.
you have different people that like are interested in different war games. Like some people that are really interested in those historical war games typically look at Warhammer and go, "What the fuck is this? Why?"
Yeah. Which, to be fair, I do the same to them.
But today we're talking about Harnmaster. Well, Harn as a whole, it's difficult to umbrella it because even like we're looking specifically at third edition,
Yeah,
which
because I
came
was
out.
going to say, I did do enough research to know there is a sort of branching off point that has happened where it is Columbia Games Incorporated is running Harn 3rd edition and what I guess is now being referred to as Harn 3.5. And then there is another company that is running Harn Master Celestia. I am assuming I'm pronouncing that incorrectly, or maybe accidentally correctly. That is being handled by Celestia Productions.
I think it's Celestia that shows up at Gen Con.
Okay. Because as part of my research, I found my way to the Harn subreddit. And
Oh, link me that. I've not
pretty
been there in
close to the
forever.
top of like new from about 2 months ago is the announcement that Harnmaster role playing in the world of Kathira is out. And looking at what some people said, you know, the half dozen of them that are interacting on that subreddit, it sounds like it kind of is more based off of the first edition rules. From what I understand, from what I can see from the website, it looks like Robin Crosby might actually be involved with Celestia. I don't know. I don't have the Celestia book. I can't check all of the who did what. But this is like literally 5 minutes research. So what we say for 3rd edition may not necessarily reflect whatever the deal with 3.5 or Celestia has got going on.
Listen, the book we're looking at came out in 2003. That's what you need to know.
Yes. Yes.
That's what you need to know. That being said, I myself enjoy the enjoy this specific system for a number of reasons. One, because it's simulationist, and second, because I get to show it to people and they get to look at me like I've punched them in the face. And they're like, why are you showing this to me? What in God's name? And there's a certain satisfaction I get from that. So, I'm making sure I bring up the rules. Okay. So, yeah, most of these won't come up. I love it. I love it. So I'm reading through these rules, just double checking. We added more.
Okay.
We added more. We added more. So we're gonna ignore these. It's fine.
Fair. I did note when I open this PDF, there's no beautiful art for the front page or anything. It's just Iron Master third edition. Here's all the names, the company, and then it hits you with the what's new, and starts going on for a full page of these rules updates, which is kind of unique in my experience, anyways. Although it's making a pretty bold assumption, like I'm somebody who has never played Arn before. This doesn't tell me anything other than these rules exist. So I was just like, okay, I mean, cool. That's cool for people who are new to it to know, but I would hope they would know some of this stuff before they bought the product. But then my other note is there's no table of contents. You literally get this what's new, and it goes into the introduction. And the book just goes. There's no table of contents. And one step worse, there's no page numbers.
Yeah, this is
a 160-page PDF. No table of contents, no page numbers, no bookmarks. Nonsense. Absolute nonsense. I did have a note, though, of something I noticed that I found very fascinating. That might be the one saving grace in regards to this. They have a sidebar in the beginning of the introduction saying that it is kind of expected for you to kind of take this and like print it out if you don't buy the physical copy and 3-hole punch it for putting it in a binder and organizing it however the fuck you want to organize it, which is definitely unique.
Yeah.
I have not seen a system be like, fuck it, dude. You lay it out yourself. Just here's all the shit. Make it make sense for yourself, I guess.
Which is what I was about to tell you, because that's what we did.
Very fair. I totally understand why, because boy, when I was glancing through this book and it was like, yes, this information is on the skill data table in skills 3-4, and then not finding that table within 3 pages in either direction left me feeling away.
Upset. He means to say upset.
It was a little bothersome, yeah. I was shocked. And with no way to navigate the PDF, it was especially just like, all right, Control F. Hopefully the title of the table will actually be found. Hopefully, like it's not an image technically, and the PDF reader can't read it.
Which is just great. So another thing to note about the system is that, because like you said, you grab what you need and then you make your own little booklet out of it. This extended to the other systems that were available within Harn, such as Harn Master Magic, Harn Master Religion. Those were the primary two ones, but you also had Harn Master Barbarian, which allowed you access to, which isn't about like your classic D&D barbarian. It's shamanistic, like approach, spiritual. Where religion is focused on like piety into gods, and then magic deals with Shekfars. We're gonna go into that. Don't worry, it's going to be wild. But to just kind of like go up front, this is a percentile system. You
Yeah,
roll. Now calculating it is a little different. It's a little different.
that's a way of putting it.
And you it definitely leans very heavily into a simulationist vibe and methodology. And there's a lot of math. Just up front, there's math. There's like, if you look at 5e and go, damn, that's a lot of math. You've not seen a lot of math. This is my bar for a lot of math. You're not just adding numbers. There's multiplication. There's division.
In my notes, I wrote calculations are whack, actual scary math. Me personally, I don't find the math scary, but it's actual scary in the sense that it's not just variables are involved. It's acronyms are involved in the
Yep.
math. So you need to know the acronyms to actually find the values that you have to plug in for the formula. So then you can actually do the math. And then rounding is very much involved. You will have to be rounding.
Yep. Always round to the closest integer.
Yeah.
That is, I'm sorry. The book says verbatim, except where otherwise indicated, fractions should be rounded to the nearest whole number.
Yeah.
Should also mention there's an entire table of abbreviations. To highlight a number of these abbreviations, I'd like to start with FRP, Fantasy Role Playing. F for Fire and Frost Aspect.
This is why I put F in my notes, Brandon.
That's what I was thinking.
Because I saw all of these very specific acronyms, this long ass list, and then Fire and Frost Aspect share an acronym. What do you mean? Why? Why is Fire and Frost the same fucking acronym?
And then my last two abbreviations that I think will be highlighted is EML and OML for Effective Mastery Level and Opening Mastery Level.
Which still makes no sense to me.
Oh, they will.
At a quick glance, I understand the concept, but mechanically does not make a lot of sense to me.
I specifically am like planning on going over skills. Don't you worry. This system is crunchy. It is very like you're biting into glass crunchy.
I very much agree.
Yeah, every little thing affects every little thing. And that is, depending on who you are, that's a good or a bad thing. Let me highlight what people might view as a bad thing though, and that's how you make a character.
I
Yes.
I hesitate to say love it. I do really like it though.
I think the word that you're gonna stick to is fascinated.
I mean, you're not wrong. I do find it very charming. And I have something I want to share, but I'll let you do your explanation first, and I'll share what I have when you're done giving us the rundown.
So, how GMs out there, GMs that are listening, how many times do your players come to you with characters that have no backstory? How would you like a system that solves that problem for you? You can, or you have players that I don't know what I want to make, but we need to get sessions started. We need to figure something out. How do I make it? Well, Harnmaster specifically, has solved that problem. You generate your character through random rolls. And
Yeah.
we're talking species, gender, well, sex, your biological sex, birth date,
Yeah.
your sun sign based on your birth date, your birthplace, the culture, if you're using the in-game world.
I will say some of these you do get to choose or roll, but some of
True.
these the default is just roll.
Yeah.
And there is an optional rule to actually just make all the choices.
Correct. But my question for you is, where's the fun in that? Uh,
True. Very true.
Your rank as a sibling, so whether or not you're the eldest or youngest, your parents, and whether or not, and based on that role, whether or not they're alive or dead, or if, perhaps you're a foster child, you're adopted, you're a bastard, or you're just an orphan.
Yeah.
How estranged you are from your family, your clan head, so whoever's in charge of your family, your appearance attributes, so your height, your frame, character size, weight. It uses comeliness. And you roll 3d6 to determine that. On a 1 to 5, you ugly. And on a 16 up, you're handsome. There's in between, obviously, but you can customize things like your complexion, your hair color, your eye color. All of these things you can roll for. Your physical attributes, another thing that's rolled for, 3d6.
Yeah, they do recommend a 46 drop the lowest.
True. But their key attributes in this game are as follows: strength, stamina, dexterity, agility, which I like that they separate the two, intelligence, aura, and will.
The aura I chuckled a little bit when I saw, considering culture now.
Yeah.
And these Zoomers / Gen Alpha going around being like, they got aura, they got aura. It's funny. It's just funny. Because it's not entirely off base of how it works in this game, but it does do other stuff.
Yeah. There's a medical table if you want to roll for a potential issue in a, might I remind you, simulationist game. But it also says medical option, reward players with 2 points, which they can add to attributes of their choice, except any affected by, the result they get.
I will say, this is it's thorough.
Yes.
It is. However, some people may balk at. There are some charts and such in this game where your gender or race will influence your placement on these tables.
Correct.
Not massively, generally, but in small degrees.
Yeah, like I think the biggest modifier I see generally is a +4 or a -4.
Yeah. And I don't, from what I'm reading, it doesn't necessarily do it because, women are less likely to become addicted to things. I don't think it's making that statement necessarily. I think it's trying to emulate kind of the situation within the setting, if you know what I mean. Like, it's not
Yeah,
saying anything about our world. It's saying this is just the likelihood in Harn. For example, male characters are more likely to have gigantism. Well, no, they're not more likely. It's the same amount of likely. That was a bad example. Uh, for some reason, men are more likely to have one leg missing or deformed. Probably because of soldiers and stuff like that, I would assume.
yeah.
But
Um,
yeah, so there is that. So if that's something that's a total yikers for you as a player or a GM or whatever, you know, maybe not, but the game isn't trying to tell you women are incapable or anything. Because you could absolutely sit here and random roll up a lady with gigantism and 18 strength that can split logs just by flexing her muscles.
you could
So
also you could also roll up your affliction being lycanthropy at GM discretion.
yeah, when I first saw it, I almost expected it to be the psychological condition of lycanthropy.
No, that's a separate table.
Exactly. So I was like, oh, okay. So it is also that kind of fantasy. This isn't just medieval life simulator. This is actually like there are fantasy things out here. We
Yeah,
have monsters and stuff. Which I did gather a little bit from the race stuff. There is a comment about playing like non-human, non-elf, non-dwarf characters. Which there was a funny little paragraph where they were like, dragons can be role played if the GM invests in a case of aspirin. And oh boy, all flying creatures create enormous headaches for the GM.
they know
Okay,
they
bro.
know what's going on.
Uh and then they make it out that like dragons can make pretty big maps, I guess is supposed to be a problem point. I don't know. I feel like you could just say dragons are not intended to be played in this game and are not intended to be represented by the rule system
Yeah,
as a playable character. Like, I feel like that just would have sufficed. Like, they go pretty hard to say, hey, don't play Gargant, which are effectively your mishmash of orcs, goblins, and other just evil creatures that can talk, essentially.
yep.
Because it's just the way the setting is, it's on site.
There are no questions asked. Yeah,
Yeah.
and like,
So, I mean, if they're willing to say that for the Gargant, I don't know why they could have just been like, you're not playing a dragon in this game.
and so that's a thing that's important to keep in mind with this system. This system assumes you'll be using the setting. There's
I
there's a level of assumption that like D&D and Pathfinder have that you'll be using the setting, but I don't feel it's nearly as to the degree that Harn Master has you buying into the
I
setting.
could see how you could extract the setting from this, but I feel like you'd be better off just finding a different system. Like, I feel like if you're going to play this game, you probably should be playing in the setting because there are elements of the character that you make that is just tied into the setting.
Yeah.
Like, your sun sign is an astrological sign, essentially, but it does have mechanical impact. But that's not going to mean anything if you play outside of the setting. but it's going to be a thing you're going to have to take because the system expects you to have one. Which, if you're playing something that is crunchy and immersive like this, there might be a little bit of a bugbear for playing in a custom setting where, why do I have this star sign if it doesn't matter in our setting?
Yeah.
Or sun sign, sorry.
And like, can you do it outside of it? Absolutely. But there's already a lot of work here to do. You as the GM, if you're a GM listening, you don't want more.
Yeah.
And like there's a number of things like we haven't even gone over like character occupation. Because that's a 1D100 or a choice.
Yeah. I didn't mean to totally derail you
No, you're
going
fine.
through the
But the D100 is influenced by your class, by your socioeconomic class, and by the society that you live under. It changes it entirely. So, because those are separated out in a big fuck off table. So they figured out that they have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You have 5 socioeconomic classes, and then there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 different societies in the system. So you're looking at 30 different subsections with their own scales from 0 to 100, from 1 to 100 that lead to an occupation.
Yeah.
I like love or hate the system. There was a lot of work poured into this.
Absolutely. And it's inspired. And it
Yeah.
is definitely a labor of some kind of love. And kind of brings me to my thing I wanted to talk about.
Yep.
In my research and from the book itself, they mention a character management program that they offer. So I find my way to the dinosaur looking ass website Columbia Games has. It definitely does not look like it's been updated since 2003, even though they do regularly update over there. And they have 2 programs that I feel like probably to some degree are musts if you're going to run this game in this day and age. They have a game master character tool is what they call it. You as a player can absolutely use this tool. It is beneficial to you as a player to use it. I feel like it's a must. And there is also the campaign manager tool, which probably is a must because it actually has an electronic harndex, as they call it. It's essentially a searchable wiki in a program, which, my God, if you're going to tell me I need half a dozen books to even play this game, yeah, that would help a lot for sure. But what I did, Brandon, I downloaded both of these programs because they're free.
Okay.
You have to create an account on their website to download them. You have to technically check out and buy them. And then you have to go back to your PDF page to actually download them, which you have to log back in if you click the link to go to your PDF page. Their site's 0 out of 10.
It's antiquated.
Yeah, it is. And at first it was a little confusing to navigate because instead of just buttons, they have like this little peasant like pushing a cart being like, oh, put item in cart. Oh, check out. And they're walking away with the cart or whatever. It's like, I thought that was the background for a hot minute trying to find this fucking button to check out. Anyways, So I grabbed this Game Master character tool, as well as the other tool to check them both out. And you can do character creation as desired from the book with this tool, where you can sit there and go all random. You have to fiddle with the options on the random page at first, but it's doable. So I did. Curious to see if I was going to get this very strange abomination of a character. Because sometimes games have these random character creators. And sometimes they just turn out like strange or like debatable how playable they are. Or something that doesn't seem necessarily really interesting to play. And let me tell you, I got something vaguely interesting. So, my random generation, I put no biases of any kind on it. I even randomized gender and everything. Even the name. I got Arvin Human Trapper is what it generated for me.
Okay.
Arvin, as his title would suggest, is a human that is a trapper. So his occupation is hunter-trapper. As a reminder for folks, it's rolling 3d6, or in this case, 4d6 drop the lowest. Because the book recommended it and the program had it automatically enabled. So I left it as is. If that's how they want to intend it, I wasn't going to touch it. 18 strength. 15 dexterity. 5 eyesight.
Ooh.
6 smell. 15 stamina.
Okay.
14 agility. 9 hearing. 17 voice. Meaning he has an excellent voice. People love to listen to this dude talk.
Did you make Deckard Cain?
I didn't make this. This is what the program gave me, okay?
Okay, let me rephrase the question.
I told you, it's interesting. And, maybe you're right. Or a 5. Intellect 13.
Okay.
So he's got good memory and is considered clever. Willpower 17.
Damn.
Morality 14.
I mean, that's still decent.
So he's considered principled and not easily swayed. Doesn't generally like to harm people or deeply inconvenience people. He's still capable of being greedy and violent and stuff, but he's going to feel guilty about it afterwards, is how the book describes it. Wait, let me get some of these other details.
How old is he?
So he's 20 with the expected age of 63. His birth date is the year 700, the first month, 8th day. He's ungilded because, well, his culture is tribal. His birthplace is the Aquani tribe. I'm assuming I'm just spitballing on these pronunciations. His parents were fishermen. His sibling rank is 3 of 9. So he's the 3rd child out of 9. He has an average level of estrangement from his family. And his clan head is an aunt or uncle. He has a comeliness of 15.
Hey.
So he is considered attractive. He's size 7, frame medium, weights 176 pounds, 73 inches. It even random generated eye color is green, hair color is brown, complexion medium.
73 inches? Fucking...
It also generated the offspring. Both parents are alive and living together. The religion of choice is Kamaki, which I couldn't find anything on. I'm assuming it's in another book.
It's its own section. I will get that.
And then it explains at 15 years, the character started training as trapper and finished 5 years later. He has a friend that is a hunter or trapper with a loyalty score of 67. He has an acquaintance that is a herdsman that's a loyalty score of 49. He has an enemy with a loyalty score of 0, naturally. And he has an acquaintance that is a hunter or trapper with a loyalty score of 38. His sun sign is Ulandis, the tree, which is described as having an affinity with nature, lives a constantly changing life, but tenaciously maintains a profound sense of personal identity. Ulandans are reliable in their ways and possess the kind of wisdom that lends strength in troubled times. They often seem aloof from the world around them, although they will bend enough to the winds. That's how they are, apparently, according to the sun sign, if you buy into the astrology of it all.
Yeah.
The skills are interesting. Unarmed, 72. This guy can throw hands.
Yeah.
Initiative, 64. Bow, 39. Dagger, 48. Sword, 64. Which left me kind of scratching my head, because this guy is a trapper. How is he better with a sword than a bow? But whatever.
His eyesight.
Fair. Communication skills, awareness 28, intrigue 36, oratory 30, rhetoric 48, which this is like talking to people and like being charming, whereas oratory is, from what I understand, kind of talking at an audience like a preacher or a philosopher or whatever would, or a teacher. Whereas rhetoric is casual conversation, being convincing and stuff like that. Singing, 42. And then language native, 76. So that's good. He can actually speak his own language relatively well. Craft and lore skills with tracking, 48, foraging, 39, survival, 51, hide work, 28, fletching, 24, brewing, 18. Not very good, but he can. Woodcraft, 36, foraging, 39, cookery, 36. Hey, ladies, great voice, looks good, knows how to cook. Sign up now. Drawing, 24. Physical skills. Great question. Where is it? It's around here somewhere. Kamaki. Kamaki. The closest thing I could find is there is a tribe by the same name. So, yeah. Physical skills were climbing 72, condition 90, jumping 60. And this is where I hit a little speed bump with the program. Stealth 39, throwing 52, and stealth 52. He has 2 copies of stealth. So I had to do some research to see what the fuck that was. Apparently everybody gets stealth for free.
Yeah.
But as a trapper, you get stealth as an occupation skill, where your skill base multiplier is a point higher than base stealth. But the program kind of hiccuped and gave me 2 copies of stealth when only one is relevant. Because obviously you just use the higher one. And naturally no psionic skills because his aura is garbage.
Yeah.
But there's still like a lot of room to kind of fill in stuff that I kind of want to, like if I want to fill in, like it didn't give me equipment, for example, it just gave me all the stats and stuff. But if you're going to play this game, I definitely recommend using this Game Master character tool. Whether you're a Game Master or a player, because you can, in a couple clicks, have a character made. You go through the random generation process, unless you're really kind of the person who wants to do all the dice rolls yourself. But I did this in like I made this in less than a minute effectively because I just had to hit a couple toggles under the random tab, and then I have this guy.
Yeah, and the Kamaki are marked as barbarians, so it's a shamanistic tradition that you have.
Gotcha. But yeah, I was very fascinated by this character. Like, he's not really inept. He's definitely just looking at his attributes and his skills and stuff. Like, there is a story you can dig out of these numbers. Like, sure, he's not really perceptive, but he is very physical. He is definitely like very attractive and appealing and sociable. But he is outside of his hearing, he is oblivious to his surroundings, really. um and yeah, you could definitely, I don't know, like I'm kind of impressed cuz I'm used to random character generation stuff kind of just spitting out this random mishmash of nonsense that you kind of have to like climb over yourself to figure out how to make it make sense. But they were so thorough with this system, with how your culture influences your occupations influencing what skills you get. Like, they were so thorough. You don't have to bend over backwards to make it make sense. The baseline you have makes some sense, and you can kind of fill in the blanks why some things are the way they are. Like, why is this dude's eyesight so bad? Why is his sense of smell so bad? You know, maybe he is just born that way, but you know, maybe there's something you could do there to explain why and add some interesting story there. So I feel like if you're going to play this game, do the random generation. Don't just build a character, do the generation. And, you know, if you don't like what you random generated, just ask the GM if you can re-roll.
Yeah.
Like, as long as you're not re-rolling until you get the perfect character.
Yeah.
If you do that, fuck you. Like,
buy into
the
the
game
system.
in the spirit
Buy
of
into
the
the
game.
system. Yeah.
Exactly.
What we should talk about now, because we went over character generation a good amount. Let's talk about how skills work.
Sure.
So you get a number of skills based on your occupation and based on certain things that happen in your life. Like if you join a military, you're gonna get a bunch of military skills. If you end up being a Shekvar or essentially a mage, that's what you have to worry about. But otherwise, like there's a few skills that you can't, default on. But skills is where there's a lot of crunch. So let's start with the assignment of skills. There's a whole entire fucking data table for it. There are 4 types of skills, and you assign these before play: automatic, occupational, family, and optional. So, automatic skills, these are skills that every character gets regardless of background or training. They're already on the character profile. This would be like the stealth that was mentioned earlier. Then you have occupational skills. These are skills that you get from your occupation. Each skill is named, followed by what is referred to as the OML, or the opening mastery level. So, that is like, for example, tracking /4 is how it appears. Means that when the skill is opened to its skill base, I know that's another acronym. It's the skill base times 4. We'll go over that here in a second. It's a lot.
Yeah, this is where it really starts getting into the thick of things, because it's using acronyms in the description of other acronyms. So
Then
you're
you have
kind of nesting understanding of things, and it makes it doesn't make it necessarily confusing, but makes it harder to read, harder to really digest what it's saying because you're having to learn so many acronyms so quickly.
yeah. Um, and then there is family skills. This is children work at the table at the work at the trade of their family until they're age 14 is how the system describes it. So if you follow a different occupation than that of your family and clan, you open the primary parent occupation skill at its opening mastery level plus your skill base, and any one other family skill at the opening mastery level. Characters who are following the same occupation add an additional skill base to each occupation. So you get rewarded for you can if you want to be jack of all trades, you pick a different trade than your family. Or if you wanted to specialize, it's best for you to go into your family skills. Mind you, if you're rolling for your occupation, you don't quite get to make that decision. And then the optional skills. All characters get 5 option points (OPs) to open new skills or improve existing ones. So reasonable skills. Once you select reasonable skills at your opening mastery level, for 1 optional point, GM must approve. New skills may then be improved. If you improve a skill, you improve any open skill by your skill base times 1. A second improvement of the same skill costs an additional 2 points. So if you wanted to open improve a skill that you already have, it's your base times 2, and it costs 3 points. Let's jump to what all of that means. Because I just threw the same acronym at you 6 times, and you're probably going, Bryn, what the fuck are you talking about? Stop saying words,
Yeah.
tell me what they mean.
Specifically, the line that made me take the note calculations are whack, actual scary math was when the book is like, this skill opens at SB times 3 plus SB times 2, which equals SB times 5.
Yep.
I'm just like, I know what you're saying, but
What the fuck are you saying?
why are you like this?
So let's talk about SB first. Skill base. It represents your character's affinity for a skill. So this is what your character progresses with for that skill. Because your skill base isn't the same for all of your skills. It's not. It depends. Skill base has a number of uses, such as determining your opening mastery level. Your opening mastery level for most skills is a multiple of your skill base. Your maximum mastery level for a skill and is your character's development roll every time they attempt to improve the skill. That's right, folks. You don't automatically improve. Your character has to roll to improve. But most folks say that's stupid. Don't work. Well, I don't think they say that's stupid, but if you're using the skill, there's a level of understanding. Mastery level, it's just your 100 plus whatever your skill base is. That's how it caps. And they're going, Brandon, this is a D100 system. Why do I want a number above 100? We'll get there. Your opening mastery level, unless otherwise noted, is a multiple of skill base used to determine your skill's starting point. If the OML, if the opening mastery level, is listed as skill base times 2, the skill is opened at your skill base times 2. That's where it starts. OMLs are given on the skill data table, which is below. I'll get there. Many occupations will give some variation of your OML plus your skill base, or your LML plus your skill base times 2. That means you then add onto it after you determine what that is. So, for example, Where's my favorite? There we go. Climbing. Climbing has an OML of your skill base times 4. You calculate your skill base, determine a skill base. The attributes are averaged, round fractions to the nearest whole number. If an attribute is listed twice, count it twice in the calculation. So climbing, so Zach, you have your character sheet still, right?
Yeah, I do.
So your attributes are strength, dex, and agility. That's what's used for climbing.
Yeah.
So what is your skill base with that average?
It was strength, dex, and what?
Agility.
Agility? I could cheat, but I'll just do the quick math. So shit. Calculator, please. So my strength is 18, my dexterity is 15, and my agility is 14. I divide that by 3 because it's the average. So it's 15.6 repeating, which gets rounded up to 16.
All right, so 16. What's your sun sign?
It's the something. It's UL. Hang on.
Is it ULA?
I have to. Yeah, Ulandus. Yeah, I have to jump around through some tabs.
All right, add +1 to that.
Cool. So that's 17.
Actually, don't add the +1. So let's keep it at 16.
Okay, 16.
I did the order wrong. Now times that by 4.
64.
Add 1.
Okay. 65.
Oh, nope. Add 2. I was going to... There's a lot of charts. I'm sorry. So that should be what your skill comes out to be.
Well, the generator is telling me 72.
So then I was correct the first time when you were supposed to add the sun sign and then multiply. Although that would make sense because the skill base uses the sun sign to determine.
18 times 4. Yeah, 18 times 4 is 72. Yeah.
So yeah. So that's how you determine all of your skills. However, each skill has its own equation. Jumping is also times 4, but it's strength, agility. Musician is for the musician skill, it's your dexterity and then hearing twice. And then you multiply by 1. Religion always uses voice and intelligence, and then something else, depending on your deity that you're for the rituals. Combat also combat is a skill based on the weapon you're using. So like an axe, a bow, a dagger, a sword, a whip, all of that has their own attributes and their own equation.
Yeah. I'm really good at punching people.
Yeah. So that's what OMLs are. And that's why skill base is important. So what that means is that whenever you improve a skill, you add your skill base to the skill. So it's not a 1-to-1 ratio. If you're really good at punching people already with a strength of 18, I imagine you are.
Yeah. My unarmed is 72.
Yeah, because it operates the same as your jumping. So with the same value. So whenever if you were to ever go, I'm going to improve my unarmed, and you succeed the test to do so, you add 16 to the value.
Good Lord.
So if you were to increase it once, you would jump to 88.
Big number go up.
Yeah. The game, again, simulationist, if you're naturally already good at a thing, it's going to be faster for you to improve it.
Makes sense.
But the reason, going back to mastery level of, oh, well, why is it that my mastery level is 100, the highest you can roll in a D100 system, plus my skill base? It's because this system has a number of things attached to it that make life difficult. There are universal penalties. You are almost never going to be in a situation where you don't have a penalty being applied. If you are fatigued, injured, slightly encumbered, it's foggy outside, you're going to get a penalty. Now, the universal penalties are things like injury and fatigue. This will always apply to any role, mental or physical. Now, if you're physically impeded, that's when, from encumbrance, that's when that comes into your physical penalty. Because penalties are spread out. The universal penalties will affect mental and physical. The physical penalty is just for physical checks, and that is influenced by your encumbrance. So this thing has it all. Do you want an esoteric understanding of how to summon the wrath of God on your foes? You have to get a job for that. You have to go find a teacher for that. There are rules for finding someone to teach you things.
Yeah.
And fighting gets more intense because depending on the weapon you're using and how you're using it, there's another set of there's another set of penalties and values. For example, unarmed, you don't get an attack bonus. So you're unarmed being a 72, you don't get to add anything to that when you go to attack someone. However, if you go to defend yourself with unarmed, you get to add 15 to your roll to defend yourself. So you have an 87 on that, and you just have to roll higher than your opponent. This system is dense and crunchy.
Are you sure?
Oh, I'm
I
sure.
haven't noticed.
And I myself very much appreciate that and enjoy that. I understand, however, most people would look at that and go, "You have a problem."
Yeah. That's why I feel there's a degree of charm to it, because there is this crunchiness. It is very simulationist, but by extension, because of how thorough it is, it's very immersive. When you're playing a character, you are playing a person in this setting. If you are special, it is by means of your character's abilities. It is not because the game book says you're special. It is because you have the stats to back it up. Because a combination of, random character generation, but then dedicating time in game to improve those skills and such. There is a certain charm to be put in a game where maybe you do just start out as a farmer, but for whatever reason, you have trained, been put in situations and such, and you have eventually elevated yourself to knighthood. And that's not just because the game master said you've accomplished that. It's because you followed the rules in the system as well as played through the story. You have made the decisions. You have talked to the NPCs. You have made the rolls. You've gone step by step through the process in playing the game and your character's story to reach that point. That's a level of immersion you don't get in most games. I know some people will probably argue with me on that, but I think until you've really sat down and played a game that is built in this way, that you can't, well, not that you can't, but it's harder to appreciate that level of immersion because it's easy to say, oh, well, I was immersed in this D&D 5e game and I felt like I earned my level ups or whatever. But level ups are an arbitrary thing. Sure, you could do XP tracking, but even XP tracking is arbitrary. Like, cool, D&D is a world where if you're going by the rules and XP causes you to level up, why isn't everybody and their cousin going into the woods killing rats of unusual size? It's there's a great bit from Brandon Lee Mulligan pointing out that's kind of an issue with D&D, that the most effective way for you as a person in such a setting to become more powerful is to go through a really sketchy forest with a group of other highly dysfunctional individuals and then come out level 20 on the other side after a month of going through this forest. Because for whatever reason, that was the length of the campaign, was going through that forest, and you came out level 20 on the other end. And that's fine. This isn't me like ragging on D&D. It's just you can be immersed in the game but not get the same level of immersion, in that this is a simulationist immersive fantasy where you do not just miraculously become better at swinging a sword and attack 4 times in a turn. This is, you want to get good at swinging a sword, you need somebody who actually knows how to swing a sword to teach you. You're not just going to pick up a sword and teach yourself. You're just going to get killed, is what's going to happen.
Yeah.
You know, this is actually a tabletop I would probably recommend to somebody who likes Kingdom Come Deliverance, for example. If you've looked at the Kingdom Come Deliverance video game and have been like, that actually sounds really fun or whatever, this might actually be a really appealing tabletop to you because it's got a lot of the same concepts. Henry in Kingdom Come Deliverance cannot get good at fighting until he goes to people who knows how to fight and he actually trains with them, which enables him to gain the skill ranks and thus the actual ability to properly use those things. The game won't let you. It's not like Fallout where you can just pick up a gun and start using it. Like, you could pick up a sword. I'm pretty sure you can swing it. But there's like a bunch of like maneuvers, dodges, and blocks and stuff that you cannot take advantage of until you meet skill requirements for. And it will just cause you to get killed. This game has the same spirit to it.
Yeah.
And I think there is a degree of charm to that.
I will say, I want to correct myself real quick. I got something wrong with the skills. I just reread it. So when you're improving a skill, your skill base gets added to a roll to the test for you to improve your skill. If the sum of the D100 roll plus the applicable skill base is greater than your current mastery level, increase your mastery level by 1. Otherwise, there is no increase. If several developmental rolls are simultaneously awarded for the same skill, they're made singly if ML is increased. Subsequent development rolls must exceed the new ML. So the way that it functions is that, let's say you have that skill of 72 for unarmed. You're like, I'm giving you 5 chances to increase your unarmed. You go, cool. You roll a D100, you add your roll, you add your skill base to it, and if it's higher than 72, it goes up by 1. Then you take your second one, have to increase it, get it above 73. So it even has a system in place for you can only learn so much, or it's not even that you can only learn so much. It's that it is difficult for you to continue to increase beyond a certain point. Um, Due to how like you only know so much. But then you have things like practice and study, and there's other ways to learn other than just, oh, I practice the skill. Like I go and do the skill and I have a chance to try to increase it. Um and that's just a correction I wanted to make, is that you don't increase your value by that amount. I was incorrect on that.
Fair. That's understandable.
But it is like, it does technically make it easier still, because you're still like, you have to get above a certain number, and you have a higher, your skill base being higher makes it easier to do so.
Yeah.
So
I imagine it might be around this time where it's like, okay, we kind of get an idea how the game roughly works. At least the basic components. We know how a character is made. We know how skills work. What do we do in Harn, Brandon? We've gotten a group together. We've got characters made. What are we actually doing in the session? What does a campaign of Harn look like?
so I will speak from my instance of playing the game. We were a group of people that were recruited by the military to essentially act as a special forces unit. We had a paladin of Lorraine, myself, because I can't help myself but make paladins.
I should have
Uh,
known.
yep. We had a Shekvar,
It's
so
a mage of
a
sorts,
mage.
right?
Yep. Um, we had a hunter, hunter trapper, technically. Where her eyesight and agility and dex were fucking busted. But her strength was dog shit. It was always funny watching her try to climb anything,
Delightful.
because it was like 14, 16, and then her strength was like 6.
Oof.
Nothing tanks an average so much. It was great. I say that my character had terrible dexterity and terrible intelligence, and actively almost died falling off a wall.
Jeez, dude.
Yeah. Uh, but we were tasked by the military to go in and take care of monsters. I at one point blocked a fireball with a shield. Uh, and like, I think it was like home rule, like not necessarily like homebrewed, but the ruling is like my character like did very well on like my block check. So it's like, all right, who's directly behind you? Cool, they take half damage. But you have to soak up the rest of it. You're taking that full force, whatever the shield doesn't handle. Um, so yeah, I got nice and cooked.
So you didn't
Um,
fully block it, but you did take the edge off of it.
yeah, I sat there as just like, I just essentially jumped in and was just like, I'm going to try to mitigate this. Because I had the ability to maneuver to block for another player, essentially block for another character. I'm like, well, I'm not the one targeted by the fireball, but the other person is. The thing here just says an attack. That's an attack roll. I'd like to block. I'm sorry? I'd like to block the fireball. Okay, let's game this out. And that's pretty much what happened.
Fair.
Um, which is a fun memory. It's absolutely a fun memory. The other two people still got fucked up. Um, but I was still standing. The But like, what they intend you to do, that's a different question.
Yeah, because I think the intention of the game would help give the listeners a little bit of a understanding of what exactly they are supposed to be doing in the game. Because if it's very simulationist, I think it's safe to say that they're not going to be, I don't know, exploring dungeons and amassing insane amounts of wealth and magic items.
No. You are, like, again, it is simulationist. One of the things that you'll have to understand is you are going to be, it's going to feel a lot more mundane because you're going to be going around. It's like, we need to go get the MacGuffin from a cave, and that cave is under the control of goblins or whatever they're called in this system. So you're going to essentially be simulationist, fighting your way through a horde of goblins to get a MacGuffin. And that's because someone was just like, hey, I need you to do this thing. Now, mind you, that is for like, oh, you're part of a military outfit, which is certainly a possibility for your character to end up being in the military. The system, there is a very lengthy section on joining the military and being a part of the military, including military organization. This game was made by people who love tabletop war games. I'm willing to bet the house on that.
I believe it. Yeah. I think it
And
coincides with my impression that these are people who were heavily house ruling original D&D when it came out. Like they played it for a bit and they decided it wasn't realistic enough. But they still liked the fantasy aspects and the house rules continued to compound until Harn was born.
yeah. Have you looked at armor types in the armor section?
I am not because the sheet did not give me armor and I did not get far enough into the book to see that
So,
stuff.
it's roughly, if you're gonna type it in to, like, if you can jump to
Yeah.
page 62.
Okay. I will say I did take note in the character creator. There is sections for parts of the body that is covered by armor and all of that. I want you to understand, listeners, the level of crunch we have here means the skull and face are separate hit locations.
Correct.
So, you know, but
Um,
I am on page 62.
and what do you see?
Well, I'm seeing a wide variety of armor types. We've got cloth, leather, quilt, kerbal, ring, mail, scale, plate. Armor has got uh what it's made out of, its weight, its PR, which is its typical retail price for an item of average size and quality, as well as its coverage, which can be including abdomen, back, rear abdomen essentially, calves, chest, which is front abdomen, elbow, face, forearms, feet, groin, hands, hips, knees, neck, shoulders, skull, thighs, thorax, upper arms.
Don't forget the groin.
I did say the groin. I went down that whole list.
Yeah. And these are all hit locations that when you do hit, you roll to see where you hit. Now, something to keep in mind for combat. Whenever someone is attacking you, they're rolling their weapon skill. Simple enough, right? Well, depending on how you handle the situation, you could roll your weapon skill. Let's say you want to block, but all you have is a sword. You can block with your sword. You just roll your sword skill. You just don't get the same modifier as attacking with your sword. So you find yourself blocking with a sword, you get to use your entire sword skill, and that could be good, especially if you're like, well, I have a shield, but I don't know how to really use it. My character does I have like a 30 in it, but I have a 70 in sword.
Also,
So
armor stacks in this system.
yes, um,
Yeah.
but so does the encumbrance.
But it's also only certain types of armor stack. So you cannot wear multiple suits of plate on top of each other, for example, but you can wear cloth over mail.
Yes. Um, but there's armor aspects. If you scroll down just one page, you'll see their protective values.
Yes.
Um, Not all armor is the same. Some armor is better at defending against other things. Like Quilt, very good against blunt. It has a 5. Mind you that the highest anything goes on this table is 10, and that's when
That's
you start getting into
great.
plate.
Yeah.
It also has decent protection against fire and frost with a 4. Not so much against, point and edge weapons, but you take what you can get.
Yeah.
Funny enough, the armor with the best fire and frost protection is scale armor
Yeah,
with
that's
a 5.
interesting.
Well, I mean, if you're fighting in a war, you're likely not gonna have to worry about fire and frost damage. So a plate would probably just be better.
I don't know. There's mages in this setting.
True, but they are few and far between from per my understanding of the setting.
That's fair.
Um, and then armor and weapons, they have quality. They have a quality attached to them. They break down, especially if you're using a sword to block a person trying to hit you with a hammer. You might
Ooh,
break your
yeah.
sword.
Yeah, I can imagine that wouldn't be good.
Yep. Another option that you have when in combat is if you're like, fuck it, I'm gonna get hit, but I'm gonna make sure I'm gonna stab him too. You can counterattack. At which point you hope they fail. Like the best outcome is they fail, you succeed, you do damage. Worst outcome is you fail, they succeed, they do damage, you did nothing to realistically stop yourself from being hurt. And you're gonna hope that your armor can save you. Um, but hang on, wait a second. I just saw something. Oh, okay, it's a surcoat. I thought it's a sugar coat. I'm like,
Oh
hold
yeah, no.
on. That there's a number of action options, and like there's an entire melee attack sequence. Oh, I'm sorry, there's a fourth option for defense, which is ignore. Okay. You have fun with that.
I mean, sometimes the correct action is to do nothing.
Sometimes it's best to just not do that.
Yeah. Sometimes. On
Uh,
occasion.
yeah. And then you have like injury determinations, injury shock rolls. Like you can go into shock. That is a thing in this game. How many times has your character in D&D been hit with a by the fucking side of a monster's tail, sent flying 10 feet, knocked on your ass, and you just stood back up? Your next turn is just like good to go. No, that's not a thing here.
Yeah.
If you
I mean,
fail
I
the
think it
shock
speaks
roll,
volumes that you mentioned earlier. You nearly died from falling off of a wall that you were
yeah,
in. Like, this is a very grounded setting despite having magic and supernatural creatures and such.
yeah. They also have like permanent injury tables. That's an entire thing as well. Um, so Yeah, it's just there's a lot going on, and like missile tests for like ranged attack. That's an entire thing. Testing morale is a thing. Mounted combat takes in account the breed of horse. Well, mount,
Oh,
not
yeah.
necessarily a horse.
Some horses are for farming, some are for mounted combat,
Yep.
some are for looking pretty.
And that includes things like steed movement, its speed, its turning restrictions. Like the game is simulationist, and there's no way around that. You I think if you wanted to keep the charm that this game has, you'd have to gut it and simplify it. Like if you wanted to simplify it and try to keep this game the same, you're gutting it. You're taking so much away.
Yeah.
Um Another thing, you can die healing. This is the last big point I want to cover is healing. How recovery works in this. The game expects you to, like, if you get fucked up, you're gonna be bedridden. Or you should be bedridden. Your character could get up and run around and do shit. Don't do that. That's bad. That's a bad idea. So the game measures your injuries based on uh how bad it is. So like you have where is it? Trying to find the table. Psionics. Either way, there's 3 levels of injury, and they have a number scale attached to them. In order to recover, you have to roll a check. If you succeed, you recover, and that value goes down, making the injury less and less severe. Where it goes from like a ghastly injury down to a severe injury down to a like a moderate level injury to like being healed, like a bruise. Um, However, there's the possibility that you fail the roll, and there's a possibility you fail it real bad, which means that it gets worse. As it gets worse, it could potentially get infected. If it gets infected, you're now on a timer. If the infection gets too bad, and it's when you have an infection, it's that much harder to heal. If the infection gets too bad, you die. End of discussion. What's very funny is that you can kill people this way. My character had a subordinate that he attempted to heal. The way healing in this game works is if you're using healing magic, primarily what it does is it allows them to make multiple recovery rolls right then and there. He made 5 recovery rolls, proceeded to botch 3 of them, and then failed the 4th. His infection went up to the cap and he died. So you can
Why does
kill
it be that
people
way?
with healing. Become a harmacist.
You know, it happens. Like, if you want to look at media that can kind of give you the vibe you should expect, 2 immediately come to mind for me: The Witcher and A Song of Ice and Fire / Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
Very grounded, but there's still supernatural elements.
And I think that's a joy, to be honest.
Yeah. I think
Um,
it's very interesting. I already said before, I think it's charming. I I personally am curious enough to be willing to play this game, to at least say that I did, that I tried it. But I am personally curious how enjoyable the experience of playing it is. Um, if it would feel just too clunky maneuvering all of the rules, or if in this day and age there are enough tools where a lot of the pain points of handling the math and stuff can be handled by like programs such as this game master character tool and other such things, if a lot of the pain is out of the way and you can just focus on playing rather than doing math.
and that's the big issue is how much of the system how much of the system gets in its own way. Um, because this is a system that I think is very, very fun. It's a specific kind of way that you want to play the game because not everyone is down for like that hardcore simulationist.
Yeah.
It's hard to say that they are. Um, but you know, the people that are into that would really enjoy something like this, especially if you're like, I want to look more into how I want to get more into this setting. I want to look deeper in. But the issue that I foresee is that there's so much shit that the GM has to be aware of that it runs into an issue that you see commonly with rules light systems, and that's GM burden, which I think is interesting because of the fact that the GM has to be aware of all of these fiddly parts, has to be aware of how all of this math works, or have at least a decent understanding of how math works to help like guide players through it. And then also they have to go, well, there's also like 6 modifications that we're doing because of the terrain, the space that you're in, the weather, and you're injured. You have to be a bit more on top of policing that, not just for the players, but for your mooks, for your individuals that you're doing this with, your NPCs. And that can be daunting. There is no question of that. Of looking at that and going, "Hey, I have a lot of shit I have to do here." And I don't blame a GM from going, "I don't want to fucking touch that."
Yeah.
Because rules light systems have a similar issue where, "Hey, I need you to translate everything that's going on. Yes, you succeeded, but at what cost? Like what happened because they rolled a 5, not a 6. Hey GM, make that up. Hey GM, this thing's going to have a power. We don't have any powers built into the system for it to function that way. Make it up. Hey GM, we have a player who has a power to introduce an NPC. Now you have to figure that out. What's the NPC's role in this? What's the NPC doing? Why are they here? How are they going to help the party? Hey GM, it's like a lot more of a for rules light, it's a lot more of a hey GM, you need to solve a problem in a creative fashion versus where in Harn Master it's hey GM, I hope you like math because you're doing calculus and you're gonna have to do it for everybody. sure, your players should be able to handle that on their own once they get the initial character sheet made, and then they don't really need to understand the background math behind it. But you need to worry about that for all your NPCs. Like, it's a more logistical burden than, like, a creative one.
Yeah. But by the same token, there's also very few systems out there that, ask the question, what how does Arvin, the human trapper, get involved in whatever the story is? Or what is Arvin's story? Like, he is just some guy. What is going to happen in this game that is, going to shake up his life? Because he's not suddenly going to become the chosen one. He's not going to suddenly go off and kill a god. He's a guy. And,
Yeah.
whoever the rest of the player characters are, maybe they're all from the same village. Is there war coming to their country? Are they being recruited? Is there like another tribe threatening to take their land? Like, there's a lot of ways you can go with this, and it's a very human level story. And I think there is, while the minutia can be intimidating, I think lighter systems miss out on a lot of like charm and immersion because it doesn't have this minutia. And that's not to say light systems are bad. It's just that element isn't there, and when it's not there, sometimes the setting doesn't necessarily feel as real, or it doesn't feel as grounded, or you're just acutely aware you're inside of a narrative.
Yeah. Um, all in all, I just kind of like I think we should move to like wrapping up and like final thoughts.
Sure.
Unless there's something else that you want to discuss.
I don't have anything huge. I do have system recommendations outside of just hard. If this thing does sound up people's alley, things to check out that maybe are not as math intensive.
I so and we could absolutely do that. What other suggestions would you have?
First and foremost, if you very much fuck with the vibe, but don't fuck with the crunch, it's not exactly light, but it's not really crunchy either. It's got, it's a nice like mid-core level game. I've mentioned it before in our previous podcasts on a couple occasions. Sword Chronicle Feudal Fantasy by Green Ronin.
Let
It
me look
was
at this.
originally built to be the official Song of Ice and Fire role-playing game. If you specifically want to do that, there is the official tabletop for that. It's the same system, albeit with some minor changes. But then they do have what followed that game, the cleaned up final version that became Sword Chronicle Feudal Fantasy role playing. Um, there's not all of the randomness and stuff. There's not as much math, but combat is deadly. Your characters are just people. There are rules for magic. There's also rules for early firearms. And there's also a lot of like house management stuff if you want to engage with that. And they do have mass combat rules that you could actually play as a tabletop war game. That's not as crunchy as other tabletop war games out there. It's actually pretty straightforward. It looks a little intimidating at first, but once you actually sit down and read how it works, it's like, oh yeah, no, this actually makes a lot of sense. Um, it's a cool system. I want to run it for the podcast at some point in the future because I do really like the system, and combat in it is brutal. And it has social combat rules. So if you want to do the Game of Thrones, we're sitting there making jabs until somebody slips up or, flips out at this very important event. There's rules for that. It's a cool system. Aside from that, there is the Witcher RPG. If you specifically want to play in a setting like The Witcher, that is definitely a system where you really should just be playing in the Witcher setting.
Yeah.
If you're going to play it, it's very grounded in that. But you could, if you really wanted to, extract Witchers from it and play just the normal people, because there are most of the character concepts that you play in that are normal people. You can play Witchers, you can play sorcerers, but the majority of character like classes effectively are normal people. So you could extract the setting from it, but it might feel a little weird.
Yeah.
Aside from those two, I'm trying to think. I thought I had a third, but maybe I didn't.
I know that I don't have a recommendation.
Why can't I? I could have swore I had a third in mind. But thinking about it, I think Sword Chronicle is probably the most generic one that is not super tied to a setting, but definitely hits this vibe. I don't know of any like proper rules light systems that could really capture this kind of experience.
And like
There's
yeah.
probably something out there that kind of hits around it, but is probably not as encompassing of actually being able to emulate this setting, because the unfortunate reality with a lot of rules light systems is they don't emulate a setting, they emulate a very particular type of story.
Yeah.
And sometimes that is also even setting agnostic. Sometimes this is some superhero thing built on powered by the apocalypse. And it's literally just fighting bad guys, and that's all the system emulates.
Yeah. I mean, we're gonna be playing in a much better system that does that, especially with some of the side stuff that includes.
Well, we'll see about bad guys, quote unquote.
Well, that's my point.
There's gonna be a lot of gray area, but
Good.
we'll get there.
I want my superheroes to be. Now, I'm not gonna get into it. Not gonna get into it. I'll be here all day. But I don't have a recommendation. I recommend you. I don't have another recommendation. I recommend that you try the system.
Yeah,
because it's unique. You're not going to find you're going to find systems that have roughly the same vibe, but because of everything it does and how much work it puts in to make sure that it gets these feelings right, and that it makes it to where, hey, we're not tripping over our own feet with like character creation. It's highly detailed. Someone meticulously went through and made sure that all of this worked and meshed together with a character generator that has, I shit you not, I think over 10,000 outcomes.
yeah.
And I think maybe you could find 3 that are like, this is kind of weird.
I think my biggest gripe is, considering playing this game, if you want access to like the full experience, you have to buy several books.
That
This
is
is not
also
a buy one book and you're done. This core book, this 160 page book, does not include all the rules for Magic. It
or
has some
religion.
of it, or religion. Like, it has some stuff, but not all of it. You need to go buy those books separate. But if you really want to capture the entire setting, that sidebar that we mentioned in the beginning of the book, where they mention all of these other books, you're going to want to get those. But it's a steep investment.
Yeah.
to try something. So, I would definitely give it heavy consideration before sitting down and buying all of these books. But if you have a play group who is like really invested into the idea of playing this game and really giving it an honest go, long haul type experience, see if maybe some of your players can maybe chip in if buying all the books is a little intimidating.
Yeah.
Or figure out what books are absolutely necessary for the game that you want to run. Like maybe you don't need the Barbarians book immediately. Maybe that can wait. And you just focus on getting those core few that are important, such as the religion and the magic. And fuck, I don't even know what else is like super important.
I think those would like be the only two.
Fair. I maybe it's just because of my experience with play by post. I would almost say this would be better suited to a play by post game.
I don't want to sit there and wait for people to take 6 years to do math.
Well, here's my thing. Oh well, yeah, that's why I'm kind of saying is like because live sessions, if you don't have a lot of tools to streamline things for the moment to moment play, or you are just incredibly impatient, can't be bothered to sit there and wait on people to do math or what have you. Play by post could be a decent option where your expectation is it might be an hour or two before you get a response because people are just doing life stuff and they'll get to it when they get to it. I honestly like most of my experience with Shadowrun is through play by posts, and playing Shadowrun live again. I mean, I'll get to it when we do our Shadowrun review, but it's a little annoying to have to sit there and wait on people to double check all their bonuses and everything. So if you're somebody who likes the idea of or is experienced with play by post and such, could be an option of a way of doing this. I definitely think there's some merit there, anyways. It might actually be one of those things. I might be crazy saying this, but I could see. I'm normally not an advocate for community roleplay servers.
What?
Yeah, I'm not gonna get super into it, but the majority of how they're ran is not good, and it's a problem. Anyways, but if you could, I could also make the same argument of, well, LARP doesn't really apply because if you're going to LARP this, you're not going to use these rules. You're going to use a totally different rule set. But if you like this and you're interested in LARP, check out Boffer LARPs, which actually involve hitting people with fake weapons and stuff.
Bop.
Yeah. But community like play by post roleplay server, if you had enough people to actually fill out like a military detachment of some kind, and having everybody organized in military, if you have enough players, have two opposing factions,
Yep.
and have skirmishes and stuff happening, I think that could be very interesting, and building a living world story based off of that.
And like there's a lot of nostalgia for me, so that's why I'm like attached to this. It was for me a very, very fun system. And I had a number of great moments, and not all of them were like, hey, failure was interesting without it being tied to the complication roll. And I didn't fail in the standard way of failing. I succeeded my check to heal the guy.
Yeah.
He just died anyway, due to
Yeah.
how healing works in the game. And I think that that matters in respect to how you analyze and look at a game. That I walked away with a good time despite my many failures, such as failing my dexterity check to walk across a wall. It wasn't like, a battlement, so it was narrow. I deserved to make a check. Don't know if I deserved to fall 3 stories. Um, but that's copium. And all in all, I really enjoyed the system. I enjoyed the simulationist aspect of it, but I also say that sitting in the player's seat. I'm pretty sure the reason why that only went on for as long as it did was because my dad, who was running it, wanted to finish telling the story. And we got so far and everyone was just like, let's do something else.
Oof.
Yep. Um but like I think a number of like character stories like had gotten to like good wrapping points. So it's not like it
That's
was an
fair.
abrupt like, hey, we're done. I think other people was just like, hey, we don't have the investment that we're not invested. Let's have a different story.
Yeah.
Which is fine.
That's fair. Sometimes, you need to have a sense of when the good stopping point is because some games just neither need to nor can just go on indefinitely.
Yeah. Um which I have a comment, but I'll save that for after this.
Fair. I was just
Uh
gonna say, I know I had a conversation with my vampire players recently, because I was pitching an idea of something I want to run when the vampire game ends. Not that that's happening anytime soon, but I wanted to put the worm in people's ears to be like, hey, you kind of interested in this or whatever. And they're like, well, how long do you think the game is going to be? And I was like, oh, well, I'm not rushing for it to end. There's still a lot of gas in the tank for it to go a bit more, but realistically, the core conceit of this game is that there's a impending Saban invasion. So the game's probably going to end once that wraps up in a satisfying way, one way or another. Because beforehand I hadn't really put a lot of thought to it. Because it's one of those things where I run Vampire very sandbox. So it could hypothetically just keep going after that. But then thinking about it, it's like, no, that's kind of the main focus of this game, even though it is sandbox. So the game will probably wrap once that wholly resolves, whether the players win or lose.
yeah.
So I would especially say that with this game, if you're somebody who's going to build a campaign, I would definitely make considerations of what is the story you're going to tell. Like I would highly recommend if you're not sure what to look at for ideas. I mean, Game of Thrones or Kingdom Come Deliverance, I think could be a really good example. I mean, Henry's story. I don't know the entire story. I don't know like spoilers and stuff, but like guy goes from essentially blacksmith's apprentice to a knight, I guess. I don't know how much variation there is and what choices and paths you can take, but I know you can learn to fight and like wear armor and stuff, so I'm assuming you get trained to be a knight. So, but that video game is a very good example of a type of story you could tell in this game. So you could sit there and say, "Hey, players, you're going to be here in this starting location. This is going to be your starting village or what have you. But war is going to come knocking or whatever. And maybe they're on a revenge arc, or maybe it is just to fight in the war and to repel the invaders or whatever. But definitely worth having an endpoint in mind because I don't know if this is a game that you just want to keep running until people die of old age, even though there are rules for that.
There is, yeah.
So I think that that's something to be said, though, is you could have some really interesting generational storytelling where the throughout the game you're not necessarily playing the same characters, but you could be playing the children of those characters,
Yep.
spiritual or literally.
There is a role on the physical injury chart that makes you infertile.
Yeah, I did see that. But you could have,
You can adopt.
you could adopt, you could have an apprentice who is like a son to you or whatever,
Yeah.
you know. And so there's a lot of interesting things you could do, but I definitely think really consider what you want the scope of the game and understand like the characters are just normal people. If they're if they're going to be heroes, it's going to be by their deeds, not because they are players in the game.
Yeah, it's not because the fighter can sit there and attack 4 times that he's a hero. It's because the person that's playing your quote unquote fighter in this is a skilled swordsman.
Yep.
But any final thoughts?
You know, um I just want to know what was really the fire under their ass to make this game.
I know. Yeah.
And I think I'd like to try it at some point. I don't know when, if ever that'll happen, but it definitely has my attention and my interest.
Um Robin Crosby, if you're listening, feel free to comment on what inspired you to make this.
Email us at Brandon needs to set up the contact email at
Shut up.
gmail.com.
I have it. I have a Gmail. Not getting into it.
Mm.
But you know, I think that this is a great example of a game that most folks nowadays would be afraid to play, but
Oh, definitely.
there's a lot to love here. Especially if you're someone who buys into the fantasy part of your fantasy role playing game.
If you really buy into the medieval fantasy
Yeah, true.
and like what that really means, not well aesthetically we're medieval, but we're a high fantasy slaying dragons on Sundays. Like this is you are playing a farmer. Potentially. Maybe you're a knight. Maybe you'll get lucky on your rolls. Who knows? But you know, it's it, I would definitely say at least check it out if it even remotely sounds interesting. Even if you're somebody who normally doesn't go for crunchy systems. If it sounds interesting, give it a look see. Because you never know. It might just be a matter of finding the right game for you when it comes to crunch.
Yep. This is
Yeah.
definitely on the far side of crunch. This is a very textured system.
Yeah, for sure.
If
For
that
sure.
is a no for you, understandable.
Yeah.
Uh, and I don't blame a soul for that. Unless you play Rifts and then you look at this and go, no thanks. Then I want to have words.
Don't know riffs. Don't think I want to.
we can talk about it. It is the game where I was shot in the back 6 times by a person on my team, not on purpose. Any other times.
Jesus. That's brutal.
Yeah. But I want to thank everybody for listening. And if you have any suggestions of older or less known systems for us to check out, feel free to tell us. Don't tell us about Panic at the Dojo. It's already on my list. It will likely be played at some point. So yeah, don't put that on there.
That's also pretty new. I feel like most of the stuff we're going to be covering for a while is probably going to be some older stuff.
Probably.
Yeah.
Mind you, saying 2003 is older hurts.
That was 21 years ago.
I know.
So it is old enough to drink. Yeah.
I'm not coping with it well. I just want you to understand.
You know. Yeah, these are just the facts, you know. So it's, and by older, I mean I at least am talking from the sense of not in the common vernacular when people talk about games. So older could even mean something that is 6 years old. It's just not necessarily being talked about. Might have just came out quietly and people didn't even really acknowledge it. But I'm sure we'll also hit some newer stuff here and there that is small stuff that we do want to give attention to that we may not necessarily play on the podcast.
Like any Mass Effect hacks.
That is, in short, I will say this. It is a criminal shame that there is no official Mass Effect RPG. It is an extremely rich setting with a lot of room to do stuff. And the fact that there is no setting or there's no RPG for it is criminal. They were working on one at one point in time using Blades in the Dark. But that doesn't count. Because it never finished.
Nope.
And also it's Blades in the Dark, so.
I like Blades in the Dark.
Nah. Too late. But yeah, I imagine we'll hit on some newer stuff, but we also are going to mostly try to keep this series to things we won't necessarily be playing on the channel.
True.
Or the podcast. So there's definitely like new, if something's new and we really like it, we're going to try to fit it in the schedule to play it so we can review it and try to get that out as soon as possible so that people can see it like we did with Daggerheart.
Yeah.
You know, we cleared out a chunk of our schedule and we played it and we had feelings and we talked about those feelings for a long time.
For a very long time.
On and off the recording.
We still talk about.
On occasion, yeah. Because as much as we didn't like it, there were things we learned from it that we think are interesting ideas that could be utilized in other ways that are more interesting.
One of us said it the polite way. One of us did not.
You know. So, next time, I'm going to be talking about Fireborn.
An FFG title.
Yeah. Which is going to be fun.
Oh, I'm going to have fun.
It's probably not going to be like this one where it was a very deep dive into mechanics because it's not a super crunchy system. There are some very interesting mechanics in it, though, that I can understand why perhaps didn't necessarily catch on super well. And I'm sure you're going to have feelings when I explain some of these mechanics.
I likely will. I have a lot of feelings towards FFG titles. That's my preview to that.
Well, we'll put it this way: FFG is so good at making RPGs that they don't make them anymore, and they have sold off all their RPGs to another company.
Do they not own Genesis anymore?
They passed it off. I'm pretty. Or no, wait. I think they might still have Genesis.
Well, to say Genesis was
Because
their baby. If
they
they
did
sold
the
that,
Twilight Imperium thing.
ooh.
Let me. Yeah, because they did a setting book for Twilight Imperium for Genesis. Let's see. Products. I'm not seeing Genesis under products. I see Twilight Imperium. Board game.
Thank you, everybody,
Oh,
for
no.
listening. We're going to investigate. You all have a wonderful day.
I think they got rid of Genesis.
I think they did too.
Yeah.
Goodbye.
It's a bad optic.